Hi Swati, I think we are live now. Let's check.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's absolutely incredible to be able to say that because right now we have viewers from Canada, Dubai, Singapore, and of course, India. I'm Swati Saraugi, and I've had 15 years of experience with children in different capacities. As a teacher, where I interacted with a lot of children of different varieties, of different calibers. As a mother, where I deep dived into children's psychology. And now, as a custodian of a school, where we're dealing with hundreds of children and we see all the different types of things that affect them. And I'm going to be in conversation with Pragati Sureka, the author of Hope. Hope. That's a really powerful word. As the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh said, hope is important because it can make the present moment less difficult to bear. And if we believe that tomorrow will be better, we can bear any hardship today. So, hi Pragati,
Hello Swati,
and welcome.
thank you so much.
Pragati is a voracious reader who started her formal writing career last year. Her earlier book includes Musings, An Insight into Me, and Hope, Stories for a Healthy Mind, a unique storybook published by Scholastic this year. She's also published articles in reputed magazines pertaining to parenting, mental health, and well being. She's a licensed clinical psychologist working in the realm of mental health since the last 15 years. Apart from her dual qualifications in clinical and occupational health psychology, she has professional credentials from Harvard Medical School, Boston, the Psychometric Center at the University of Cambridge, UK, and Beck Institute, Philadelphia. She believes emotional well being is possible for every individual. And with that powerful thought, let's talk about three children today: Ryan, Kabir, and Shoma. Each one is suffering in different ways for different reasons. Ryan is a child whose parents are continually fighting with each other. This story deals with the impact that has on the child. In a very heart wrenching way, the child somehow feels that it must be his fault and he blames himself for it. His performance in school suffers because he's extremely stressed. In Kabir's story, we see the child getting impacted because of his father's depression and because there is no clear communication of the same to him. With COVID, loss of lives, loss of jobs, loss of freedom, it's taking a toll on adults and on children alike. And we can see that there are real issues at home. This story will help us understand if our children are getting affected by these and what we can do. And Shoma. Shoma's OCD. While sometimes we use this term jokingly with someone who's extremely particular about something, we can see the devastating effect it can have if there's no control over it. It can end up affecting all areas of behavior and relationships. So I'm so excited, Pragati. Let's deep dive into each of these.
Absolutely. Thank you so much Swati for having me here. Thank you BabyChakra, and thank you all our viewers for tuning in. When I started writing Hope, I realized that hope is such a simple word, yet it's something that keeps us all alive. And as you mentioned, I've been a therapist for more than 15 years now. And while there is a problem, parents tend to come to a clinical psychologist and they want a one step, quick fix solution for the child. Unfortunately, that does not happen. Just like for daily dental hygiene, one needs to brush their teeth daily, and only when there is an issue, the dentist can perhaps help you. What my endeavor is that with hope, something like this needs to be in every household so that parents know how to have essential conversations with children. Now, for example, I have parents calling me up. Children want to know, Mom, what is stress? What is this fear? What is this mental illness that everyone is talking about? Children are very savvy now. It's there on world news. It's something which is there. And this unprecedented crisis that all of us have been pushed into and at this global level is something no one was prepared for. And I think right now what people have realized that daily mental health care is absolutely essential. Now, while it sounds very nice theoretically, how does one do it? You may have a 6 year old, and when you try to talk to a child about mental health, the child may probably look at you and say, Mama, mental health, what do you mean by that? They can't see the mind. Even in their classrooms, that's not something which is spoken about. By the time they are introduced to science and the human body, a lot of they are in much higher classes, at least middle school. So in fact, when I wrote Hope, I realized that these common things, like when a child's behavior, like especially Ryan actually is very distracted in school. So what happens is the teacher notices in a very nice loving way. She does not reprimand him. In fact, there is a section where Shoma, that's another girl, just sniggers at him. Now, children watch these small things, how sniggering of another friend or even just a classmate affects them very, very much. They can't express themselves, but they feel the ridicule of others. So, when the teacher spoke to Ryan very nicely, Ryan actually told her that what was there on his mind, his parents bickering at home. And very sweetly, a lot of times, see, Swati, you are a principal and you're an educationalist. Teachers are under a lot of pressure. They want the best for children, but sometimes they may not have the patience or the wherewithal. So, through Hope, I even want to take a message across to teachers that sometimes just that smile or that loving touch, helps you get across many behavioral issues. You don't necessarily need a psychologist or the school counselor at that level, because for a child, the teacher is the biggest heroine or hero in their life. I'm sure you would have said, like, if mama says the spelling is this and the teacher says that the spelling is something, children will, of course, listen to the teacher, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So through Hope, through Ryan's story, I have tried to elucidate how does a teacher converse with a child when she sees some kind of behavioral problems? How does she approach the parents? And what can parents do in such a situation when there may be problems? In normal households, we always have issues, either regarding finances, regarding health, some kind of relationship issue, challenges at work, maybe an aging parent that we are worried about. But how does the child interpret that? So, through Hope, I have tried to address these things in a very warm, simple, positive tone. What is your feedback when you read Hope, Swati? I would love to hear.
No, I absolutely loved it. And what I really enjoyed was the kind of detailing that you've done. As you just mentioned earlier, Ryan gets snickered at by two girls. And we generally, when we think of bullying, we tend to think that is something that boys do. But here you showed that, even just a simple act of that kind of puts the child under trauma, under stress. And of course, we've seen it, and we have this at our annual day, one of our lead characters, she was extremely excited. She was to play a very exuberant character on stage, but her father didn't turn up. And she was so dull that day that immediately the teachers understood that something was not right. And when we asked her in detail, she burst into tears and she said that, yes, there is some problem at home and my father's not going to come because, So we know the impact that this has on the child. And yes, of course, it's very important to maintain a congenial atmosphere at home for children. They get affected, they get stressed. And what they feel is that they are somehow responsible in some egocentric way, that children think that the world revolves around them. They kind of get that is something that they have perhaps done wrong. So I like the fact that you brought that out. So should I just read out one part that I really liked? And
Absolutely, that would be
okay,
nice.
yeah. So he says Ryan is thinking when he sees his parents fighting. Actually, the parents try to hide it, but he is sitting and he overhears the conversation, and he says that maybe his best friend is a much better boy than he is. Maybe if he could become like that other boy, his mommy papa would be happy and they could all live happily. I mean, they think he prays to God to make him a good boy. He wants his mommy papa to be happy and always laughing and smiling like Avi's mommy and daddy. Nobody shouts and screams in Avi's house. They all hug and kiss him and his little brother all the time. I think that was so sentimental, so heart-wrenching, really, that if I may say so. We just desire that little connect with our parents at all times to be happy.
Yes. In fact, human touch is magical. And somewhere we forget the power of magical touch. What I've tried to just kind of bring to a parent's notice. It's not that parents don't want to hug their children, but sometimes they just feel that my child knows that I love him or her. What is the need to hug? And especially if you have, let's say, adolescents or older children, they'll probably be making faces and saying, "You, mama, you, dad, just keep away. I'm not a baby." But we all like human touch. So here, through Hope, very subtly, I've just tried to bring it to the notice. Even stakeholders, like later on, even the teacher, if you see somewhere I've mentioned that the teacher gives Ryan a pat. So with touch, we actually can bridge communication gaps that are there. It does not matter how old the child is. That gentle touch is something which can create magic. In fact, amongst all our senses, touch is something that we do not pay as much as attention as we could. And trust me, if people touched each other lovingly and in a healthy manner, especially at home, need for clinical psychologists for me would definitely go down.
And I read somewhere which I really liked is that the when you hug somebody, the first few moments are a little tight. That helps them release themselves, and then you can actually see them easing into the hug, and that is when you know that you've opened up your vulnerabilities. And we should just wait for that couple of seconds more when you can feel that that stress go away from the child's body. So that is the important. It shouldn't be a very perfunctory, a very quick thing on the move type of thing. It just that little 1 minute more will make a big difference.
I totally agree with you, Swati. Like mothers love talking to children about nutrition. Eat this, this is good for your health. Now, what I want to tell mothers, that hug when you give your child actually releases happy hormones in your child's neurosystem. So you'll have a happier child, and you will actually have a child who is less reactive to situations. I urge all of you to try it. If you make a daily habit of hugging your child at bedtime, and exactly like you pointed out, not like a quick functionary kiss, but something where, your love actually flows through your touch, you will see a tremendous improvement in your relationship with your child.
Great, great. And of course, you brought out something which is very close to my heart, the role of the teacher. I mean, when we have children crammed into classrooms and the teacher is just in a hurry to finish the curriculum and really not do anything beyond that, that creates a very, the child feels lost over here. Here, your teacher in your book takes that little minute to find out that there is something wrong with Ryan. And she just goes that extra mile, which maybe just takes 5 minutes of her time or whatever. But the point is that extra care. So that is so important. So
actually, as human beings, we have started undervaluing the human touch. What we feel is, goals have to be absolutely measurable. It has to be about awards, it has to be about admission to a particular school, it has to be about featuring in some kind of contest, or having been written about either a state level of award or a national level award. Now, we need to understand just one small thing. I'm not Einstein. My husband is not Einstein. Can we have a child with Einstein's IQ? And if I had gone through the kind of pressure that we put on our children, would we have survived it? If we just ask ourselves that, we'll take a pause. Agreed, the world is a lot more competitive. And what really works for me is our Eastern concept of psycho-spiritual development. If you see, they always spoke about thoda hai, thode ki zarurat hai. We need to get back to that minimalism. Even not the Danes are supposed to be the happiest people on the planet. So if you actually see their school curriculum, it's so flexible, it's so relaxed. They value spending time in nature, they value work-life balance, and we need to get that back. We don't have many corporate slaves, in kindergarten or primary school. And they need not feel like that. I honestly feel that.
absolutely. And that is something I think that is the only thing that COVID has really taught us this year, to really appreciate all that we already have.
Yes.
I think that's a huge gift, if I may say so. We're always striving for more and more, but this year with the health of our loved ones around us, we've really learned to be grateful for whatever we have. And so let's go on to the next next character, the next story, as you say, it's about a child whose father is suffering from depression. And because the child obviously doesn't know at that point of time, and he doesn't understand what depression is, he kind of feels that, he hates his father. And he thinks that Papa's always scolding me for the smallest of things that I do. He's always yelling, whether even if I laugh at home. And it's just like a very stifling atmosphere in the house because of that. So, what what's behind the scenes here, Pragati? What led to this?
What led to this is these days a lot of parents now, with growing awareness, bring children with some kind of difficulty that they are coping up with. They say, ma'am, my child is very angry. Can you do some anger management for the child? Now, when I delve deeper, I invariably find that there is one parent who is suffering from anger issues. And also, when I go deeper, sometimes there's actually a chronic problem. When I talk to the mother separately, the father separately, I realize that the parent is on some kind of medication and they don't tell the child about it. Now, children get very confused. They are, very systematically, they like to be systematic. They need to know exactly what is happening, and they are far more resilient than we give them credit for. So, if there is, now they live in the real world, it's not a fake bubble that we can raise them in. So, I realize that with depression growing so tremendously by leaps and bounds in every household, it's time that children knew if a family member is suffering from depression. Because when I see people suffering from depression, it's their family members also who need some kind of guidance, they need some kind of hand holding. So, here, how do you talk to your young child about depression, especially when they see, and depression again, we have a lot of different kinds of depression. I won't take it to a lot of clinical terminology and all that. Safe to say, in certain kinds of depression, there is a lot of mood fluctuation. Now, children don't understand why the mood fluctuation happens. Now, if someone actually took time out to speak to them about it, it works. And in fact, I once had parents who got a young girl, and she asked, what is wrong with my papa? And the doctor was so nice. The psychiatrist actually explained to the child, ki, look, your grandmother takes medication for diabetes and she cannot have sugar. So in the same way, there is certain hormonal disbalance in your dad's mind, and these medicines help him feel calmer. And when his mood is not okay, then you just need to probably take care, and with medication and with counseling, your daddy will get better. So let's help him feel supported. And that child was very, very receptive to it. In fact, that is the basis for the story of Kabir.
Super. And that's exactly the part that I've highlighted, which I enjoyed the most. That after the mother explains to Kabir what the father is going through, and he says that he gives the mother a big hug and he says, "Thank you for explaining everything to me. I was scared you'd tell me it wasn't important." And the mom says, "Oh, Kabir, no." She's hugging him back and she says, "Talking about your feelings is very important. Otherwise, they build up inside you and erupt like a volcano, hurting both you and the people around you. If you can't talk about it, how will you fix it?"
Yes, absolutely. The biggest reason during this pandemic or even otherwise why people are feeling so bottled up is feeling your feelings is something we have learned how to avoid very effectively. We feel that have fancier lifestyles, have fancier goals, but you don't need to feel your feelings. If you're going to have an argument with your spouse, it's better to just go separate ways and not talk about it. But over time, emotions get bottled up. We have to learn how to regulate them. I may feel angry, but what keeps me mentally sound and healthy? Just my ability to feel a feeling and then sublime it, then understand what to do with it. It's not that I'm all over the place. I don't need to run away from anger. Now, imagine if we didn't have anger, would we have had the greatest revolutions that we know? People were angry about certain behaviors, so they stood up for what is right. So,
True.
anger has an adaptive function, but we need not use it as an excuse to be all over the place.
Absolutely. And that brings me to something I'd heard earlier. We have to feel our feelings to heal, and we have to feel to Okay, I'm going to get this. When I get this right, I'm going to
I know you told me the other day. That was really beautiful.
feeling our feelings to heal and healing our feelings to feel again. So
Yes,
that is what
absolutely.
it is. Yes, we have to process them, and if we can explain to the child what the parent is going through, the children can be partners instead of feeling absolutely excluded from what's happening inside the house, and again holding, either hating the dad for it, hating the family member for it, or feeling that they are not important. Either way, that's not helping at all. So if you just have that conversation with your child and explain things, I think that would really ease matters.
Yeah, they grow up to be emotionally stable. They have a blanket of emotional ability resources. They understand, okay, have an issue, give ear to it, talk about it, pay attention to it. And then you can use either a character strength like resilience, or you can actually talk about effective communication. Then they will know what to do. Like, if you see young children, they take a coloring book and they color. Initially the rainbow could be whichever color that they wanted it to be. The sky could be pink or gray or green. As they feel that they are connecting to the real world, they use colors which they feel are more typical. So in the same way, if you learn to feel all your emotions and you do not call them good or bad, by the time you're an adult, you know how to fit those emotions in the real world in a way that works for you. So you're emotionally very, very strong. Like we have seen in this pandemic, there are a lot of people who've actually used this time to become more minimalistic in their lifestyle. They've also started taking better care of their mind body equilibrium, that basic meditation which they didn't have time for. People are doing that. That phone call to a family member where it was like, I'm very busy. So they are putting in that effort. So these are very small things which actually build up your emotional strength. So even in a crisis which no one was prepared for, I don't know a single household which has not been impacted either financially, health wise, or relationship wise. It may not be humongous, but everyone has got impacted at some level or the other. So, with emotional strength, imagine these children. If they knew about it from this age, they'll be prepared for any kind of crisis that may come their way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And building resilience, making our children anti-fragile, as we keep saying to to our parents or to everybody, is that that concept of helicopter parenting, where you're always holding around the child and protecting him and not letting him face any hurdles in life. That doesn't help, because he will stumble and he needs to get up and he has to get back on his own feet. So it's very important for children to be able to find that strength to bounce back. So as parents, we'd be doing them a great disservice if we don't allow them to have any experiences at a safe level, of course, at a level which they can handle, but which will help them to fight back, which will help them to understand that some situations are beyond control, like the father's depression is, but they're working on it. So it also helps them to see that we're all work in progress, if I may call it that, and it's not that that no situation is insurmountable. If we all work towards it as a family cohesively, we can help to achieve what the desired result is.
Absolutely. And like no child learns how to walk before stumbling many, many times. That makes their legs stronger. So I think when it comes to emotions, my request to parents is, as preventive mental health problems, try that. Let them feel their emotions. Let them play around with emotions so that they learn how to handle it and manage it. So they are not fragile adults, but they are actually emotionally resilient and someone who's absolutely primed for sound mental health.
So how do you suggest we build sound adults like this? How do we make them less fragile?
Firstly, by role modeling that behavior. you know what we need to do is in fact, the other day I had a workshop with a group of children between 6 to 10-year olds, and I was talking about hope, and we discussed anger, and they spoke about it. When we spoke about anger, the way my father gets angry, I also get angry. So I tried this breathing technique with them, and I could not believe, even a 6-year-old, he actually breathed 5 times, and I asked him, are you still feeling angry about something that he spoke about? He said, no, not as much. So, something as basic as that, practicing the pause is something which will help parents also regulate. If you're angry about something, just take a pause, count till 5, breathe in and out, and then respond. exactly in the tone that you and I are talking. If, in spite of anger, you can talk in a firm, assertive, or relaxed tone, the message will go across to the child. And the child learns that yes, you have certain emotions that are not very acceptable, but if you need to voice it in a respectful, calm manner.
Sure, sure. And how about identifying emotions? At what age does that begin, or how do we help children to even understand that yes, I am feeling angry? How does a 6-year-old know that?
Uh, I'll tell you, it begins actually a lot earlier. You deal with little children, and like there are a lot of studies. They say even babies, toddlers, they react to the tone of voice. If it's a sharp tone, they kind of they get distressed. If it's a soothing tone, there'll be a gentle smile, and if there's a loving touch, very gently they move towards the touch. So all these reflexes are there. So what I feel is children are smart psychologists. They are the best psychologists when it comes to their parents, and by the time a child is 7, the entire adult personality is formed. So, thinking that a 6-year-old does not understand anger is not true. Even a 2-year-old, if you see, why we talk about the terrible twos is because, that's when they're trying to assert themselves. They understand that, yes, the mother is there, but they feel that, they need to assert their independence. They want to do things their way. And then they look for reactions. You will often see toddlers look at the adults around them, and especially the primary caregivers, they follow them with their eyes. So, anger and the basic primary emotions that we talk about, love, disgust, anger, they understand these things, sadness, from a very young age.
Right, right. So this kind of reminds me about two things, and I'll go into that because that's the third part that I've marked in the third story. Actually, the role of caregivers and the people who are in our immediate vicinity in the child's surroundings. But before we come to that, Pragati, I just like to mention that in our school we have like this emotions chart where we help the child to go and pinpoint, and even very tiny ones. I'm talking about 3-year-olds, to go and say that okay, today I'm feeling so happy, and or I'm feeling a little sad, or I'm feeling a little angry. And during circle time, we just give them that 1 minute to talk about why I'm feeling this particular thing. For small children, of course, it's a very small something. My friend, my mother didn't give me the tiffin I wanted. As simple as that. But for the child, that's very important. And
Absolutely.
when we talk, when we give importance to their feelings, when it's for the small things, they will learn to trust us and confide in us as they get big, because then for bigger things also they will come back to us and share those things with us. If we start ridiculing them or not giving them enough importance when they're very tiny because we think these are really tiny issues, then that we've lost that opportunity to build that connect with the child.
I
So
agree.
yeah. Okay. So moving on to the third story, which is about Shoma. She's a young girl who suffers from obsessive compulsive disorder. She really can't go to sleep without making sure that everything is absolutely in place where it needs to be. And we see that this affects every sphere of her relationship, every sphere of her behavior. So can you shed a little more light on Shoma? Is this very common amongst children? Is this
See, what happens is there is a growing trend of perfectionism in children, because a lot of times there's a lot of pressure on them. Now, imagine there's a child who is in nursery. Parents start telling their child, you perform properly because you have a school interview, you better do this properly, you better do that properly. Sometimes unintentionally, criticism seeps into their psyche. So, when there is too much of criticism at home, it could be from a parent or a significant caregiver, could be grandparents, could be anyone. They start feeling as though whatever they are doing is not good enough. That perfectionism actually develops into while it's nice to be neat and tidy, but when that neatness or perfectionism starts hampering your day to day routine, like Shoma is someone who needs to rearrange everything color coordinated. You can see my bookshelf behind me. Most of it is tidy, but a couple of books, if you see, are slightly out of line. And I'm talking, it's all right. It's a proper, it's a regular bookshelf. Now today, if I actually, before every live, if I kept settling it, can you think how much of time would get wasted? I would not be able to have enough time for my work. I mean, I can see your books also behind you, they are there, it's fine. So, it helps us, being neat helps us just manage our life well. There is a proper place you keep it. But if you obsess too much about perfectionism, you are so lost in the detail that nothing is good enough. So through Shoma's story, I want to bring to parents' notice and all the stakeholders in a child's development, whether it's teachers, whether it's grandparents, whether it's neighbors, that don't comment on children unnecessarily. Like, a lot of times I'll tell you simple things like that. Like little children, sometimes they want to wear their prettiest frock if somebody is visiting. Normally, the mother's reaction is, this is not that special. The child feels it's a special occasion. Now, I feel unless and until it's a serious health hazard or a safety hazard, don't check children. Let them make small decisions. Let them make some mistakes so that they grow confident. They don't feel that they need to be very meticulous up to the point that they get paralyzed. Where if they are eating a slice of toast, if some crumbs fall down, they feel that they are committing a crime, and they need to, you need to feel alive, and regular is good. These days, we've stopped emphasizing the importance of being regular. We only talk in terms of ultra. केवल 95% आया है.
On that.
It does not work like that. It's just too much pressure on the child. So when I wrote Shoma's story, I wanted everybody to take a pause. If your child is healthy, overall doing well, there's a lot to be grateful for. And if when your child has potential, give the child the space. Each one has some USP, let it unfold at the right time. Don't crack the egg before it's ready to burst open.
Absolutely. I like, the fact that you said that let children make small mistakes so that they gain confidence in their own abilities, because otherwise the child just becomes dependent on the parent to take all the decisions for them, and they will never be able to do it right out into adulthood. And that's a very unhealthy adult then that we have brought up.
True.
Yeah. So, of course, a lot of things stood out, and Pragati, I must congratulate you. It's a very, very detailed book, and it's a very interesting read, and you can relate to every small nuance here and there. But for me, what I enjoyed for Shoma, amongst all the other things that I enjoyed, I thought I'd just pick one from every story. So for this one, I was like, why does Dadi never feel happy with her? Why is she forever explaining things to Shoma? Because she could never understand what Dadi says. This is probably because Dadi's sharp words cut like a knife and hurt her. She would feel upset and angry and not want to do anything that Dadi asked her to. There was no any point in telling Dadi how she felt, however. She always got angry and told Shoma, I am saying it for your own good.
Exactly.
So, we just, like you said, the criticism that is all around. Of course, here you've just used a Dadi. It could be any primary caregiver in the family. It could be an elder sibling or a parent or anybody. So if there's continual, negativity being forced in the name of I'm doing it for your own good, it actually does more harm than good to the child.
I agree. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I in fact really like, Khalil Gibran's quote, your children are just passing through you. So just as we are very affable and nice when we have visitors, we talk to them sweetly, we are courteous and kind, it actually works with children also. When it comes to communicating, while loving gestures need to be there, shared chores needs to be there, but when it comes to communication, there are certain basic rules which need to be followed. Your child may be 2, your child may be 20, your child may be 40. You will often see, like a lot of clients I see who have aging parents, and they say that it's difficult because sometimes even well into their 40s or 50s they are being criticized for their choices, and it does not feel nice. So what we need to do is let children be. Just as we don't want to be criticized, we actually have to stop criticizing the child. And usually, I have used a figure. Normally, with Dadi, we are used to a very loving, kind figure and the mother who is criticizing. Here, I just want to bring forth the point, whether you have a loving relationship or it's not just the mother, all family members need to be absolutely involved with the child and not criticize on any pretext. Sometimes I have young children coming in. If they have a little bit of baby fat, they are criticized as though they have to go on Miss India stage and they better not have a spare ounce of fat. A child has good metabolism. If there is a health issue, it can be dealt with proper exercise, with better food habits in the entire household. it's not nice to nitpick on children for little things.
Absolutely. So if we don't criticize the child, how do we bring them if they're onto a wrong track? Suppose somebody doesn't tidy up the room or somebody doesn't brush their teeth. What is the corrective measure then?
Effective communication, exactly like I said. Sit the child down, just check, is the child hungry, is the child tired, is the child angry, or is the child late for something. Don't do that. Find a nice comfortable time, just like you and I are talking. Ensure that your child is free, there is nothing really coming, and say, okay, I want to have a 10-minute conversation with you. I've been noticing that you're not brushing your teeth daily. Do you think it's good? Even a young child, you can take out a picture book, you can show some video, you can have a conversation, you can perhaps share an anecdote when you forgot to brush your teeth and how it was stinking, and put in humor. When a child is not doing things, put in humor. And if the child says, I know what you want, just say things like that. I'm so happy to hear that. However, in my experience, I've seen, if you don't do your work and then when you're making spelling mistakes, it's really, really embarrassing. Parents, they forget to laugh with their children. What I really recommend is, ask yourself just one thing. Did I laugh 3 times with my child today? About somewhere where I goofed up. So, and very gently, if you have a message, put it in. So for every negative comment, or sometimes we have to set boundaries. If you've been firm and assertive, I need to have at least 5 loving gestures to mitigate the effect of that negative comment.
Like a sandwich, you start with something compliment that you
Yes.
liked. I mean,
Yes.
you're something that you're proud of that the child has done today. Maybe it's made an effort. Maybe he forgot to brush yesterday, but he had brushed the day before and for the whole week ahead. So it could be just a gentle reminder that, that was a great habit that you were picking up. And then, I mean, it's just a thought here. And
Exactly. Exactly like you're saying, Swati. I always believe, as a mother, as a parent, use your natural instinct. Everything doesn't have to come out of a textbook. If you are natural, and if your child is forgetting things, is your child over pressurized? Is the child not having enough time to get ready before school? Are you a harassed parent? Are you constantly running between deadlines? Better get ready, I have to drop you and then go off to work, and XYZ. Those are some of the factors that parents need to keep in mind.
absolutely. And no judgment. As soon as we have a conversation with our children, it's always somehow, it's a very one-way thing. We're always giving them instructions. I don't even call it a conversation actually. It's about, did you have your lunch, and did you finish your homework, and have you had a bath, and how it is. It's never really just a conversation where you're having, just two people.
Actually, we have to treat them like mini adults if you want to earn their respect and share a camaraderie with them. Children understand. When I was talking to my friend's 4-year-old, she loves Peppa Pig. So I have a name now. I'm Auntie Pig, huh? So she's like, Peppa is doing this. So I was like, what do you have for Auntie Pig? So she very categorically told me, okay, I have this book, I'll give it to you next time. So you have to talk to them at their level. You can't behave as though what they are telling you, it's not serious. So she asked me, when are you coming to meet me? I said, today. She said, no, I'm busy today. I said, will Monday suit you? She said, yes, I will check and I'll let you. All of 4. So the whole point is, when you converse with children at their level, you bond with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm going to read out one more part that it really, really resonated with me, is that most problems in children's behaviors result from low self-esteem and unnecessary criticism that they are subjected to. To raise emotionally intelligent children, good communication patterns and harmony at home are essential. So, children are highly resilient. When dysfunctional patterns of communication between adults around them or with them is checked, they bounce back very quickly. Most of their behavioral challenges disappear, and they learn healthy patterns from a young age, which in turn become lifelong habits and sound personal resources. They grow up as healthier children who become mentally sound and healthy adults. So this was something that I really enjoyed. Pragati, do you want to share some tips that we can use to build child's self-esteem?
One is, in fact, I have them at the back of the book also. One is, one very important thing is, be a role model. Parents need to do what they expect their children to do. I'll give an example of a 15-year-old. His mother had brought him to me because he was a national level sports player. And what happened is, he was losing interest in all kinds of games. And she said, ki, he's distracted by his phone and I don't know what is really happening. And what he told me is my mother is always on the phone. In fact, when she is driving, she's constantly talking on the phone. And she said in the morning, the reason why when I was doing one sport and I shifted to the other is I need the driver to come to take me. Neither does she get up to take me, nor is my dad taking me, and neither is a driver. So obviously, if I was constantly not reporting for practice, then how do I cope up? So I decided it's just easier to quit. So parents have to really role model that behavior. Now I may think my phone call is important because it's to give instructions at office or to at work or at home or something. But for that child, chatting with his friend seems equally important. It makes no sense to me when it's just about, they are talking about a third friend. But it's a very important part of a child's social development. He's actually learning how to bond with his peers. He's learning how to have his mini world and how to get his point across and listen to another. So who are we to judge? So firstly, if you have to build a child's self-esteem, deal with them honestly and truthfully. Be a role model. And if you can't do something, don't check your child for something that you are practicing. If you have late nights, you can't tell a child, because I'm an adult, I'm sleeping late, you're a child, go off to sleep. It works with some children without any kind of issues, but most of the time children get instigated to rebel when they hear such statements. What do you feel, Swati?
Absolutely, absolutely. And they will always, do what the parents do, not what the parents say. So, it's a monkey see, monkey do. So, of course, you have
I
to be role
agree.
model at all times, and as Sadhguru once said that parenting is a 20-year-old responsibility. You can't think that, this is the most important job that you're ever going to take up, bringing up another human being well into the universe. So make sure you're ready for that commitment. You have to be a role model at all times. They're observing every minute of everything you say, and they will notice the discrepancies really fast between
I
what you
agree.
say and what you do.
So the next tip that I have is help them become independent. When children make their own age appropriate choices, they actually learn to face consequences of their decisions. And over time, they become independent and they also become responsible. Like a lot of times, I remember my son used to love eating Maggie, and just, every day he wanted Maggie for a snack. So I remember he was 7 or 8, and I told him, for the next 2 days, would you like to eat Maggie? He thought I had lost it. He was like, really, mom? I said, yeah, yeah. And then he realized he actually, after the second meal only, he lost interest. And we kind of had a conversation about food and it worked. I remember I used to give him sprouts in his tiffin and he wouldn't eat. And I would get irritated as any parent. I was like, why don't you eat? And then one day I sat him down, exactly like you said. And I asked him, what is the matter? He says, Mom, my friends tease me. When you give me sprouts, they say, horses eat sprouts. So you are a horse, so go out and eat the grass on the field. So I feel very embarrassed to have sprouts. Now that was news to me because with nutrition, I was putting in that effort to have a nice balanced tiffin. And so you have to talk to your child, and you have to let them make choices. And then we came up with something which was satisfactory. So help them
And what's
make
going on at
decisions.
the child's end, like unless you would have had this, you wouldn't have got his point of view that
Yeah.
is teasing him about eating sprouts and yeah.
Horses, I mean, it never would have struck me in my wildest dreams, something like this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
And lastly, to build the child's self esteem, respond, don't react. A lot of times children push our buttons. They know exactly what triggers us. Sometimes, they play divide and rule politics. If mama is saying one thing, father is saying something, they know which side their bread is buttered, let's just say it. But what you need to do is, if you expect your child to have healthy self esteem, respond. Don't be reactive. So over time, the child learns that I am a respectful, valuable person to my parent, I'm not someone who's treated as though someone who's worthless or who's uh, any kind of opinion is not as important as the adults around him or her. So this really builds up the self-esteem. And yes, before I forget, there is another point. Be very loving towards your spouse. A lot of times parents feel, like in Brian's story, you will feel how they behave with each other is not important. And many a times we are reactive to the other's behavior. Now here I would just kind of encourage every parent to think today you have brought the child in the world. So when you're really working hard to provide for the child financially, give the child good education, good clothes, how about just being a little loving towards your spouse even when you're not being loving? So these small things really solidify a child's foundation, because his world is safe when parents are comfortable with each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. Say the greatest gift a father can give a child is to love their mother. I think that respect that builds up, it just makes a family such a happy place to be in. And a happy child, you can always tell them, even in a class, we can just tell children who come from happy foundations, they're just secure in being themselves. They're absolutely okay to be laughed at. They're just, people with very high self-esteem. So nothing, and on the other hand, children who come from shaky family foundations, they get upset so easily. They have to be, that they're troubled. So it is so important that if you can give your child that security, that yes, your family is the safe haven that you can come to, and we are always there for you together. And perhaps, if you don't get along with each other too well, maybe you can tell the child that, maybe it's not as pretty as you would have wanted it to be, but we both respect you, love you, and we will both be there for you always. We will be there together for you and make sure that you have everything that you need, which includes us being together for you. So
I agree totally, Swati. I totally agree. So, what I've really tried with Hope is to, develop an essential resource which can be there to start conversations around mental health, even about, something that like emotional strength. We don't have conversations about emotional strength. We have a lot of gyan giving about don't be reactive, be kind, be nice, but actually how does one regulate emotions? If I'm feeling angry right now, what do I need to do? Every child needs to know that, and it's never soon enough. You can have this conversation with a 2-year-old, with a 4-year-old. In fact, when you were talking about your work as territory head of early learning tools,
childhood association, yeah.
yes, early childhood association, and you have a lot of work papers with that, so if these kind of tools are available, children grow up emotionally resilient. And then as they are in primary school, if they have a book which talks about emotional wellness, we will have a nation of very secure, very confident, and emotionally agile adults. They will be able to handle crises, and even if someone is laughing at them, they'll manage to stay focused. And humor, they also will learn to inject humor in situations where nothing can be done.
Absolutely, absolutely. Take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, there's
Yeah.
sometimes there's just nothing one can do but accept it. And if you can accept it with humor, with grace,
Uh-huh.
nothing quite like it. So, is that what inspired you to write this book? What's behind that?
See, when I wrote the book, I remember my I have 2 children, and by the time I had my daughter, I was quite seasoned with a lot of things. But when I had my son, I was a very young mother, so I used to love reading everything under the sun. I would read books on it. I would see YouTube channels, and I would try to do everything to the T. But by the time he was a teenager, he had a mind of his own, and he seemed to do a lot of things which did not make sense to me. And I remember, in fact, talking to my supervisors also. Okay, I've done everything to the T that I see in child psychology books that I have read about. Now, every child comes with their own personality. Like when I spoke about this, he had a bit of a weight issue. He was one pampered child who loved to eat, and at those days, I mean, now of course parents are a lot more conscious, but 2 decades back it was okay, with young children who could eat everything. Everybody else in the house ate unhealthy. So, and it was like, you eat healthy food, and that was something which would not happen. Now if the adults around are eating unhealthy food or fried snacks for breakfast or lunch or dinner, the child will definitely have that. And then I realized that, if I had a resource where I could actually kind of have conversations with my child about it. Ki, look, why is it bad for you? What is it that would be there? There was nothing available. So at that point, his school counselor really helped me on how to deal with certain issues that I was struggling with. And I felt supported. And, like they say, a doctor cannot treat his or her own child. You need help and guidance. I actually realized that there are countless parents who want the best for their children, but they struggle with issues. And while childhood is an amazing time for every parent, there are challenging situations which come. So there needs to be some kind of resource available. And in the Indian subcontinent context, we didn't have any books. There were books about Alice, there were books about Mary, but there was nothing about Kabir. Now, Calcutta has a very strong, where I belong to, Anglo-Indian community. So Ryan is a very common name that you would find. There are a lot of these Agnes and Ryan. You have these names that children grow up with. And I did not want any community specific name. So I have all these names which, are basically, and in India, we are a secular country. All children of all faiths are there, and I wanted that communal harmony to come in. And as a parent, I want people to reach out to others. Like, don't shy away. If there is something that you are seeing that your child is struggling with, reach out to the school counselor. I'm sure you have a school counselor there. Reach out to a proper licensed therapist who will guide you through the process.
Right.
And with that hope, I wrote Hope.
Perfect. And like you said, the Indian subcontinent, that relatability comes in. You perhaps know a Kabir, or you perhaps know, so you understand that, yes, there could be issues happening all around me. It's not happening where there's snow and where there is an Alice who is absolutely no connection whatsoever with my life here. So yeah, I'm so glad that, you brought this into, and I hope you're going to be writing about other issues, because I mean, this is just the starting. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely. I intend to have a full series, like a full box set on it. Because what I realized, it's not just these three things. There's anger. Children need to understand anxiety. The other day, my daughter asked me, Mom, my friend was Googling and she felt that she has anxiety disorder. I said, and this child is, this is a child who's probably 10-year-old or a 12-year-old. So it's scary if 10 or 12-year-olds Google and they read about disorders and then all the symptoms they tick off. It's better that, when they are younger, they understand what anxiety is, they understand what stress is, they understand what a Prader-Willi syndrome is, they understand what alcoholism is, in very simple terms. So yes, there are definitely quite a few books that I have in my head at the moment. So let's see where we go.
Great. All the very best for that. I'm sure
Thank you so much.
Useful. I know I'm going to have this book as a resource in my school and recommend it to parents if I feel that they're struggling with issues like these. And I believe you've pledged the proceeds of this from the sales of this book to a charity called No.1 Foundation.
Yes, that is correct. In fact, No.1 Foundation deals primarily with women and children, and in the absolutely marginalized sections of society. When Amphan struck, No.1 did a lot of work in the Sundarbans, and has rebuilt a lot of homes. And they run a community kitchen, which is just in the vicinity. I always believe in supporting a foundation which is very approachable and where you can see the good work being done. So I have pledged the things, because another thing what I've seen is, as people of privilege, it's our social responsibility, rather family social responsibility, to give back to society. Children don't see that being role modeled any longer. So that is my endeavor, that parents, please do your bit of charity. Please do some concrete charitable work so that, you show abundance to your children. And this will also help children to always feel that they have more than enough for their needs.
Wow. I'm loving this. So beautiful concepts here. Firstly, the new term that you've coined here, family social responsibility, instead of a CSR, now we have an FSR.
Yes.
And I love the concept that, show abundance to your child. It's going to give them so much. Firstly, the biggest gift they'll give themselves is gratitude, because they'll be grateful for all that they have received. And yes, of course, we all need to do a bit for society. I mean, every religion actually expects or propagates the idea that we should be doing, and somehow I think we kind of got disconnected with that. So it's great if you're going to come back to that, to give back. That is so important.
Absolutely. Early on what happened, the rich built dharamshalas, they built parks. Now the rich go to exotic holidays and the middle class aspires for exotic holidays, exotic cars. Now, while it's an individual's choice, I have nothing to say about it. Sometimes it's not possible for some people. Perhaps their pay packets are not that wide. Sometimes, there are family systems, the business goes through ups and downs. So, is that enough reason to have all joy leached out of your life? So, I want that concept to kind of come back. If you have something, share. And, that concrete charity, when you do with your own hands, is something which is very, very satisfying. So, if you're getting 2 square meals a day, then 1 hour of charitable or voluntary activity will make you feel that abundance. And when you practice that and telling children, you be grateful, you have such a fancy room to yourself, I had to share it with 5 of my siblings, does not work. It does not make them feel grateful. It just makes them feel resentful. Ki mom or dad, just stop comparing. Or I came from this small village and I studied under a lamp, and they will look at you, ki really, I don't really care. So,
True. So there's this beautiful saying that if you have more than enough food on your table, don't build walls, build a longer table,
on the
build
table.
a larger table. So I think that's exactly what you're amplifying here. And as these stories amply demonstrate, all kids need is a little help, a little hope, and somebody who believes in them. These beautiful words were said by Magic Johnson. So from my end, I would like to say that this Diwali, let's spread joy and hope. Happy Diwali to all our viewers.
So thank you everyone for being here. I urge all of you to start having a daily ritual of your mental health care. I also invite all of you to follow me on my social media handles, Emotional Ability Resources on Instagram, and on YouTube. I'm there as Pragati Sureka, and also on Facebook. There is always hope at the end of any issue or challenge that you are facing. So, if you want me to talk about a particular topic, or if you have any comments or questions, do reach out to me on any of these handles. Thank you, Baby Chakra. It's been wonderful being here, and happy Diwali to all our viewers today.
Thank you to everybody.